Well, here you are, here we, here we are again. Um, I'm sorry. I I had to go to dinner, and I'm back after my things. Well, we will continue. Just show again. We will continue the extension syntax, and in this part, no, not this part. Just a minute. I'm trying to figure out what's happening. Finally, in this part, we will continue and finish stuff. Um, I will still be keeping this clock, because when I'm not stopping to make some exercises, I'm stop sometimes to relax and read something else, and that's something that I do. I have this habit. Okay, so 10 minutes, 10 minutes reading, 10 minutes reading something else. I have a magazine that I want to read. This magazine is not the normal stuff, normal magazine, the specific magazine that's difficult to read, but I like the what's wrote in this magazine. Well, we will begin. Um, let me just one moment until I fix something here. Okay, here we go then. Okay, we were talking about the okay, we are talking about the divisions. Why we use markup languages like that? It's more readable. The code, although it's much code, it's more readable. These controls that are label, box view, and label are inside the grid. Grid is a layout. Label is label, and box view are control types using the markup language. Control types, you interact. The user can interact, or at least how can I say, labels, box views are something that data is interact with it, or the user can interact with the controls. Layouts, the user normally can't interact with layouts. Normally, there are cases uh, when you can take the actions made, like the click made in a layout type, but normally controls are for doing something, and layout is more for doing things like this, to separate spaces where the controls can be put. So the grid row, grid column, grid row span, and grid column span attributes appear to be properties of the grid class. But this class doesn't define anything named row, column, row span, or column span. Instead, the grid class defines four bindable properties named row property, column property, row span property, and column span property. There are special types of bindable properties known as attached properties. They are defined by the grid class but set on the children of the grid. I don't know about these types. I know what's a bindable property. I know what's a bindable property. Don't know if the same thing. I know you can bind things, but I don't know if that's the case. Well, anyhow, let's continue. Note, when you wish to use these attached properties in code, the grid class provides static methods named getRow, setRow, getColumn, setColumn, getRowSpan, setRowSpan, getColumnSpan, setColumnSpan, columnSpan. Attached properties are recognizable in XAML as attributes containing both. Oh man, I forgot to make the clock. Now continue. Attached properties are recognizable in XML as attributes containing both a class. Attached properties are recognizable in XML and XAML as attributes containing both a class and a property named separated by a period. They are called attached properties because they are defined by one class, in this case grid, but attached to other objects, in this case children of the grid. During layout, the grid can interrogate the values of these attached properties to know where to place each child. I believe this is the way when a layout knows where to put each object of those control types. Content properties. In the previous example, the grid object was set to the content property of the content page. That's true. Normally you need to use content page dot content and open and close a tag like this. But the content page, normally you don't need to do this because uh, the compiler understands that everything between these two, in the specific case of content page, these two tags are understood as content page. Anything different than a content item should be used the content page dot and the type of data, like dictionary, if you wish to call. Content properties. In the previous example, the grid object was set to the content property of the content page. However, the content property was not referenced in the XAML, but can be. Oh, look, like that, people. Like I said, could be done like that. This is more explicit. The content property is not required in XAML because elements defined for using .NET MAUI XAML are allowed to have one property specified as the content property attribute on the class. Content property content class content property. Any property specified as the content property of a class class means that the property element tags for the property are not required. He is talking about not this content. He's talking about this content. Okay. Any property specified as the content property content of a class means that the property element tags for the property are not required. Therefore, the example above specifies that any XAML content that appears between the start and end content page tags is assigned to the content property. Many classes also have content property attribute definitions. For example, the content property of label is text. When they say the content property is text, is not the text in any meaning. Text it's a property of type string. So when you do not specify something different, he is expecting a string, because the text property, I know the text property in the class label is a string type, is a string property. So it expects strings, which are array of chars. Platform differences. .NET MAUI apps can customize user interface appearance on per platform basis. This can be achieved in XAML using on platform and on classes. Content page padding on platform. Notice that we are using the X that comes from XAML. X type arguments. Thickness. On platform, iOS and Android and their values. Notice, on platform, it's a property. I believe it's a property from padding. Padding is a property from content page. Inside padding, that probably is a class, there is a property named on platform. Here it's being used which comes from XAML, the type arguments, and you put the name of these arguments. Why? It's to everything that's inside of this being understood like something to the property thickness. Probably thickness is in no. Probably thickness is not a property inside on platform. Probably thickness is the name of a type, like it said. I know there is a class called thickness. Probably he's saying the type which is going to be between these tags are of type thickness. That is a class. On platform, it's used on from I don't believe it's MAUI. I believe it's from XAML. No, who I'm kidding? Probably it's from MAUI, and on, that is a class from MAUI. Platform, and you specify the type, which is going to be translated in enumeration, and you pass a value, which be going to be read. On platform is a generic class, so you need to specify the generic type argument. In this case, thickness, which is a type, I told you, of padding property. Thickness, which is a type of padding property. This is achieved with the X-type argument, XAML attribute. The on-platform class defines a default property that can be set to a value that will be applied to all platforms. So what they are saying, whatever it is found between these tags of the content page Inside all of this, anything related to thickness in the iOS platform is going to have these values of thickness. In Android, these values of thickness. In this, in this example, the padding property is the padding property is set to different values. In this example, the padding property is set to different values on iOS and Android, with the other platforms being set to the default type, default value. Note: when positioning controls with the padding and margin properties, when positioning controls with the padding and margin properties, if 4 values are provided, the order is left, top, right, bottom. For more information, see positional controls. That's true. When you use this, you say that, like thickness, 10 pixels to the left, 20 to the top, 20 to the right of the object, and 10 to the bottom of the object, or most of the time of the control, or no, any type, layout or control, doesn't matter. Put here. Yeah, time's up. Okay, gonna make my readings. People, nobody is obliged to I don't know, it's talking to people like anyone is seeing this. Nobody is obliged to do the things the way I do. I notice that when I read something and from time to time I stop to make my brain think about something else, or doing something, or I use the time to clean something or to make some other things and come back in the same time to read, my reading goes forward more faster than if I read all of this, all um, all is the word here, all at once. It will be more. It is better than I read all at once. Okay. Well, until see you guys in 10 minutes later. Okay, I'm back. Well, um, let's continue. Um, Let me turn it on. Okay. The onPlatform class also defines a platform property, which is an list of onObjects. The onPlatform class also defines a platform's property, which is an list interface list of onObjects. Each onObject can set the platform and value property to define the thickness value for a specific platform. In addition, the platform property of on is of type iListString, so you can include multiple platforms if the values are the same. Ah, like this, you can, if it is the same values, you can put more than one platform. Cool. This is the standard way to set a platform dependent padding property in XAML. Um, if the value property of an onObject can't be represented by a single string, you can define property elements for it. For more information, see customize user interface appearance based on platform. Let us see here. Where is this? Oh, it is much further. Yeah, there's something that's further, not now. Okay, next steps. .NET MAUI XAML markup extensions enable properties to be set. .NET MAUI XAML markup extensions enable properties to be set. Markup extensions enable properties to be set to objects or values that are referenced indirectly from other sources. XAML markup extensions are particularly important for sharing objects and reference constants used throughout an app. That's the next one. So it is a good point. Having values specific for platform is something that differentiates MAUI from the one that I am using my day by day basis, which is Avalonia. Just you people know. Um, there are others that I don't know. I just need the part. What is Avalonia? The difference between MAUI and Avalonia is that he, from Avalonia code, he transformed it in a throughout the Skia Sharp engine. He transformed that in something visible to the platforms, but it is something that almost is likely equal throughout the platforms. Something that uh, MAUI, not XAML, MAUI is not able to do. You have in each platform there is difference of on how each control will be presented in the screen. Know this. There are There are advantages and disadvantages of this. Through time, you know these advantages and disadvantages. Well, as you can see, we have then finished. Have finished this, and now we are going to markup extensions. Well, I'm going to click here. Just need to click here. Markup. XAML markup extensions. Let's see, shared resources. Okay. Examples. X static markup extension. Other markup extensions. Data binding. Very well. XAML markup extensions. .NET Multi-Platform App UI, .NET MAUI XAML markup extensions enable properties to be set to objects or values that are referenced indirectly from other sources. XAML markup extensions are particularly important for sharing objects and referencing constants used throughout an app, but they find their greatest utility in data bindings. Sometimes you'll be seeing data binding or binding, but sometimes you want to use a code that is in other class. In other part of your project, there is a class that you want to use a specific data that it is used there, or a specific method. You want to call a specific method of a specific class. The markup extension can make you the class, which is your screen, find this other class and referentiate that to the markup language, which will be C# converted to C# in the end. Typically, you use XAML to set properties of an object to explicit values. Typically, you use XAML to set properties of an object to explicit values, such as a string, a number, an enumeration member, or a string that's converted to a value behind the scenes. Sometimes, however, properties must instead reference values defined somewhere else, or which might require a little processing by code at runtime. For this purpose, XAML markup extensions are available. XAML markup extensions are so named because they are backed by code in classes that implement iMarkup extension. Maybe I'm mistaken about what is markup extension. XAML markup extensions are so named because they are backed by code in classes that implement iMarkup extension. It is also possible to write your own custom markup extensions. Maybe I'm wrong about this. In many cases, XAML markup extensions are instantly recognizable in XAML files because they appear as attribute values delimited by curly braces. They open and close curly brace. But sometimes markup extensions also appear in markup as conventional elements. Important. Markup extensions can have properties, but they are not set like XML attributes. In a markup extension, property settings are separated by commas, and no quotation marks appear within the curly braces. Time's up. See you again. See you again soon. Okay, back. Um, Here's the button. Okay, okay, let's continue. Before that, let me note down in the live. In the live. XML markup extensions. Just to note down this. Save. Okay, continue. Shared resources. Shared resources. Some XAML pages contain several views with properties set to the same values. Some XAML pages contain several views. Some XAML pages contain several views with pages contain several views. I don't understand that. Some XAML pages contain several views with properties set to the same values. For example, many of the property settings for these button objects are the same. Do this, center, okay. Do that, do the other thing, but the same. 3, border width 3, okay. If one of these properties needs to be changed, you might prefer to make the change just once rather than 3 times. If this were code, you would likely be using constant and static read-only object to help keep such values consistent and easy to modify. In XAML, one popular solution is to store such values or objects in a resource dictionary. The visual element class defines a property named resources of type resource dictionary. Okay, the property resources and the name of the property is resources and the type is resource dictionary. Probably visual element it's something that is in the hierarchy of the content page. It's probably one of the fathers of the content page. How can I say? In C# we have a hierarchy. So how can I say? How can I explain that? I need to explain stuff. I need to know how to explain stuff, which is why I'm stopping here. Okay. Okay. Label class. It's from the namespace System Windows Controls. System Windows Controls. System Windows Controls. Presentation Framework DLL. Okay, that's the assembly. That's in the namespace. System Windows Controls. Inheritance. The label inherit from content control, and content control inherit from control. Control inherit from framework element. Framework element inherit from user interface element. User interface element from visual. Visual from dependency object. Dependency object from dispatcher object. And in the end from the father of everyone, the object class. Well, this is just to explain. Visual elements it's something that comes content page class. Just to explain things. Okay. Content page, flyout page, navigation page, tablet page. We will be seeing these quite ahead. Um, well, um, whenever I have time. So, content page, content page, content page um, will have as its father the visual element. The visual element has a property which is resources. Resources has as type the resource dictionary. Okay, this is the type, this is the name of the property, this is where the property comes from. Probably content page it has this class as one of its fathers. The visual element class defines a property named resources of type resource dictionary, which is a dictionary with keys of type string and values of type object. What is a dictionary is answered when you study C#. There is a part here in the .NET learning system to learn C#. You can put objects into this dictionary and then reference them from markup all in XAML. To use a research dictionary on a page, include a pair of resources. To use a research dictionary, to use a research dictionary, to use a research dictionary on a page, choose a research dictionary on a page, include a pair of research property element tags at the top of the page, like this, and add resources with these tags. Objects and values of various types can be added to the research dictionary. These types must be instantiable. They can't be abstract classes, for example. These types must also have a public parameterless constructor. Each item requires a dictionary key specified with the xKey attribute, which comes from XAML. So you have an object that is a class like layout options, and you put here data, and you reference these objects with this key. In this example, the two resources are those two are values of the structure type. In this example, the two resources in this example the two resources in this example the two resources are values of structure type layout options, and each has a unique key and and one of and one or two property sets. In codes and markup, it's much more common to use the static fields of layout options, here here it's more convenient to set the properties. Oh, didn't notice the time was up. Okay, let me just stop here. I will come back. Okay, let's continue the next part. That that's something to see, people. What time is it? Um, Funny, I could have. Well, technically, this is 9:38 p.m. and we are studying on a Saturday. What you see here is something called dedication. Well, anyhow, I will do sometime. Uh, I will try to see a way to put in the screen the time, the clock time. Looking fine. Just me try to test something. A clock. Hmm, we can find some other way. Oh, anyways, let's go. Optional resource dictionary tags can be included as the child of resource tags. So you can have more childs that have open tags and more and more and more to the infinity and beyond. Optional resource dictionaries can be included as the child of resource tags. The resources can the resources can then be consumed by the button object. Optional resource dictionaries can be included as the child of resource tags. The resources can then be consumed by the button object by using the static resource XAML markup extension to set their horizontal option, vertical option properties. Static resource, those two. When you The static resource markup extension is always delimited with curly braces, those two, and includes the dictionary key. The name static resource distinguishes it from dynamic resource, which .NET MAUI also supports. Dynamic resource is for dictionary keys associated with values that might change at runtime, while static resources access While static resource access elements from a dictionary just once when the element of the page is when the elements of the page are constructed. Whenever the XAML parser encounters a static resource markup extension, it searches up this visual tree and uses the first resource dictionary each encounters contain the key, which is why if you have all of these and both of these have the same key, the first one would be the one used. It is necessary to store it is necessary to store doubles in the dictionary. It is necessary to store doubles in the dictionary. It is necessary to it is necessary to store doubles in the dictionary. it is necessary to store doubles in the dictionary for the border width, rotation, and font size properties. XAML conveniently defines tags for common data types like xdouble and xint. Mm, good. That's something that could help a lot. That avoid having this avoid the need to create a converter. Imagine you create a converter just to a primitive or built-in type. These additional three resources can be referenced in the same way as the layout options value. For resources of type color, you can use the same string representations that you use when directly assigning attribute of attribute of these types. Type converters Type converters included in .NET MAUI are invoked when the resource is created. It is also possible to use the onPlatform class within the resource dictionary to define different values for the platforms. The following example uses this class for setting different text colors. Next key, text color, type arguments, color, on platform, red, iOS red, Android aqua. The on-platform resource gets an X key. The on-platform resource gets an X key attribute because it is an object in the dictionary. The resource gets an X key attribute because it is an object in the dictionary. And an X typed. The on-platform resource gets the on-platform resource the on-platform resource gets an X key. The on-platform resource gets an X key attribute. The on-platform resource. I'm getting confusing. The on-platform resource gets an X key attribute because it is an object in the dictionary. Okay, understand. And an X type argument attribute because it's a generic class. Okay, and then we are defining that its type. The iOS and Android attributes are converted to values when the object is initialized. The following example shows the three buttons accessing six shared values. Okay. The following screenshot verifies the consistent styling. Do this, do that, do the other thing. Although it's common to define the resources collection at the top of the page, you can have resources collections on other elements on the page. For example, the following example shows resources added to a stack layout. On one of the most common types One of the most common types of objects stored in resource dictionaries is .NET MAUI style. Yes, I can verify that. We we used much the style in the past until we had some problems related to many people using this throughout the system. One of the most common types of object stored in resource dictionaries is .NET MAUI style, which defines a collection of property settings. For more information about style, see style apps using XAML. Styles are inside the user interface. Yeah, it will take time. The purpose of the resource dictionary is to share objects. Therefore, it doesn't make sense to put controls such as a label or button in a resource dictionary. Visual elements can't visual elements can't be shared because the same instance can't appear twice on a page. You're right. You are right. X static markup extension. In addition to the static resource markup extension, getting pretty sleepy. How far I am from to finish this? Not so much. Mm, let me try something. Let me try something here. I'm going to use another screen. I don't know if you can use this item. Ah, let me try. Let us see what happened. Mm, but curious. Microsoft Store or just the store. You'll be looking for word clock. Let me see this atomic clock. Show the screen. Where is the here? Hmm. Let me see. Okay. Well, it's 9. It's this time here. I'm to I no, the atomic, the other. I believe it's better that we make a fast run and try to finish this. X static markup extension. X static markup extension. In addition, in addition to the static resource markup extension, there is also an static markup extension. Static resource markup extension. There is also a static markup extension. However, while static resource returns an object from a resource dictionary, X static access a public static field, a public static property, or a public constant field, or an enumeration member. Note: the static resource markup extension is supported by XAML implementations that define a resource dictionary, while X-static is an intrinsic part of XAML, as the X prefix reveals. The following example demonstrates how X-static can explicitly reference static fields and enumeration members. Layout options dot start. Interesting. Okay. Uh, it's kind of a way to say use this static class. So I just simply tell the class, and in this case probably is a enumerator, and call the enumerator. Good option, good option. Like it, the idea. The main use of X-static markup extension is in referencing static fields or properties. The main the main use of X-static markup extension is in referencing static fields or properties. Use of your own code. For example, here is an app constant class that contains some static fields that you might want to use on multiple pages throughout an app. Static class app constants: color, background color, foreground color. To reference the static fields of this class in XAML file, you need to use an XAML namespace declaration to indicate where this file is located. Each additional XAML namespace declaration defines a new prefix. To access classes classes local to the root app namespace, such as app constants, you could use the prefix local. The namespace declaration must indicate the common language runtime namespace name, also known as the .NET namespace name, which is the name that appears in a C# namespace definition, or in a using directive. This is an example. You don't need to, I believe you don't need to put the name local, but it's a consent. It's something easy to find. That is that it is in the root of the project. You can also define XAML namespace declarations for .NET namespaces. For example, here is a sys prefix for standard .NET system namespace, which is in the .NET standard assembly. Because this is another assembly, you must also specify the assembly name, in this case .NET standard. I understand. Almost there. Note: the keyword common language runtime namespace is followed by a colon and then the .NET namespace name followed by a semicolon. The keyword assembly, an equal sign, and the assembly name. The static fields can then be consumed after declaring the XAML namespace, like the local x static local app constants dot background. In this example, the box view dimensions are set to mathp and mathE, but scaled by a factor of 100 here. Other markup extensions. Several markup extensions are intrinsic to XAML and supported in .NET MAUI XAML. Some of these are not used very often, but are essential when you need them. If your property has a non-null value by default, but you want to set it to null, set it to the xnull markup extension. If a property is of type, you can assign it to a type object using the markup extension xtype some class. Your property If a property is of type, you can assign it to a type object using the markup extension. You can define arrays in XAML using the XArray. You can define arrays in XAML using the XArray markup extension. This markup extension has a required attribute named type that indicates the type of the elements in the array. For more information about XAML markup extensions, see Consume XAML markup extensions. Here. Next steps. .NET MAUI data bindings allow properties of two objects to be linked so that a change in one causes a change in the other. Truly. Okay, let's open up now. Done. In progress. Well, that's it for today.